How do stop losses work on Kraken? Let's say I have a birthday party on Wednesday night, but an important meeting Thursday morning. So Sensible Me pre-books a taxi for 10 p.m. with alerts. Voila! I won't be getting carried away and staying out till 2. That's stop loss orders on Kraken, an easy way to plan ahead. Go to kraken.com and see what crypto can be. Not investment advice. Crypto trading involves risk of loss. Cryptocurrency services are provided to U.S. and U.S. territory customers by Payward Interactive Inc., PWI, DBA Kraken. View PWI's disclosures at kraken.com/legal/disclosures.
Today on CityCast Philly, we're talking about how the Kelce family is just everywhere. There's a documentary about Wing Bowl, and would you have a baby with the Phanatic? I'm sitting down with Johnny Goodtimes for a Philly pop culture roundup. It's Tuesday, October 22nd. I'm Trinae Nuri, and here's what Philly's talking about. Johnny Goodtimes, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You have been hosting Quizzo in Philly for more than 20 years, and you've been a co-owner of Shibe Vintage Sports for the past decade. We've got some Philly pop culture topics here. And we got to start with our royal family, so to speak, the Kelce family. From Jason, his wife Kylie, brother Travis, and Taylor Swift, and Mama Donna. Jason is everywhere, just like these political ads. After he showed up at an Eagles game last month in a green velour tracksuit, a Philly artist named Get Up started posting these big pictures of Kelce in the tracksuit all over town. Did you see Jason in this green velour tracksuit?
Yes, I did.
I think it would be a great Halloween costume.
I think you're going to see a lot of it. I saw some of it, actually. I was tailgating on recently, and I saw definitely more than one person in an Italian green velour tracksuit just hanging out drinking beers in the parking lot.
So we went from his mummers costume when we did the Super Bowl 52 parade, and now we're moving to velour tracksuits.
Yes, and in fact, as somebody that works in sports fashion to some degree, I am talking to my business partner about should we bring in green velour tracksuits. I think Kelce is going to make that look become mainstream.
Yes, for sure. He's in every NFL commercial, basically. They got him on ESPN as a commentator. What are your thoughts about just how life has been for him after retirement?
Well, it's sort of bizarre because typically those types of sponsorships, those types of showing up as a commentator, that kind of thing, that's going to be reserved for quarterbacks and wide receivers, right? That's going to be the majority of who those guys are going to be. So it's very bizarre that a center is sort of this pop culture star, as Kelce has essentially become. And so that's very unique. And there's something that registers is that he fit in so well with Philadelphia. Some athletes come here and do. Some athletes come here and really struggle with it because Philadelphia is a tough town to figure out. And Kelce just did such a great job of understanding the fan base that it registered, and especially being part of that Super Bowl winning team. That's really when he started to become a bigger star because he was such an important part of that team. So I think that sort of has gone outward. We'll talk a little bit later in the show about a couple of TV shows in Philly that are big nationally now too. I kind of feel like there's something about the Philly attitude that's getting a little bit bigger that people kind of like raw and unfiltered, and that's what Philly is really good at. So I think that's part of the reason that Kelce is being adopted and being beloved, not just in Philly, but across the whole country.
One of my favorite Kelce moments was the underdog speech, right?
Oh, yeah.
That was just epic.
We were a bunch of underdogs. And you know what underdogs is? It's a hungry dog. And Jeff Stoutland has had this in our building for 5 years. It's a quote in the O-line room that has stood on the wall for the last 5 years. Hungry dogs run faster. And that's this team.
And then there was like something else he said in that speech. He was like, 52 years, Philly, you've been waiting for this.
For 52 years, y'all have been waiting for this. You want to talk about underdog? You want to talk about a hungry dog? For 52 years, you've
he understands us.
Well, he's dressed as a mummer while
Right.
he's saying it. Like he definitely knows how to tap into. Look, we're very parochial, and we very much are proud of our institutions. Obviously the mummer's a little shaky, but we do at least enjoy the sequin part of it. and that's what he really dove into. Mm-hmm. And, I think that for him to give the greatest speech in Philly sports history while dressed up in sequins is just mind-blowing.
Now, how do you feel about the other members of the family? Travis, in his own right, is making waves in football and dating, I don't know, this woman named Taylor Swift.
Yeah. I think it's funny that Jason is almost as big of a star as Travis when Travis is an offensive superstar. He's a tight end. And he's for a long time been the best one in football. He's more, I would say, traditionally handsome. He's dating the most famous woman on earth. You would think that he would be the superstar, but somehow it's really a package deal. And that's what's really been interesting to me about it, is that Jason is kind of his equal in terms of star power, which is kind of bizarre.
I love how the brothers are so connected to one another too, and they show up to cheer on the Phillies when we were doing all right. They go to Sixers games together, so it's just like that brotherhood. It's literally the city of brotherly love.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's taken off, because it registers as real. It registers as these are two brothers who really love each other. This isn't two actors putting on a bit. These guys really, truly care about each other. That comes across in everything they do. And I think that registers emotionally with people. These are two brothers who love hanging out together. And they also, oh, by the way, want you to eat this cereal.
I feel like it's probably because they were raised right, because Mama Donna had them in line. So she's also got her thing going on. She's in 2 Hallmark movies. And of course, they're about football. What do you think this says to Mama's in the spotlight too?
Yeah, it's just a full. So is Jason's wife, Kylie. I mean, it's a full family affair. They've really, and I think that part of it. I think that's where the Taylor Swift effect certainly comes in. Everybody's curious what mom thinks about the new girlfriend. And oh, by the way, the girlfriend is the most popular pop star on the planet. Right. But she has sort of, in her response to that, kept it real so that she, again, registers this brand as it's become, has been a group of people who keep it real and are pretty authentic. And just so, just that registers right now with the way our pop culture is going. I think people you look at who the popular influencers are. It's not like the old days where it's everybody's perfect. People are a little bit more real. And I think that's part of the reason that the Kelces across the board have registered nationally.
Johnny, do you watch Abbott Elementary?
I do.
So that show is about the Philadelphia School District. Do you think it comes off as authentic, like how maybe the Kelce family comes across?
Absolutely. I have a wife who teaches in Strawberry Mansion. I have a son who goes to Stanton Elementary. So it definitely registers true to me. And again, I think it gets back to that point where we're at this moment where people like for things to be a little grittier and a little more real. And Philly is just kind of showing up and saying, oh, hey, we've got this. Right. We've been preparing for this for 300 years. Right. That's the brilliance of the show. And that's why, same thing with the Kelces, that show resonates. Not because it's, a mockumentary about Philly schools. It's because it feels a certain way. It's not just because the jokes are funny. It's not just because it's well produced. There's a certain feeling you get from watching the show that, wow, this is probably the way a lot of things are like in public schools. It doesn't just present like this shiny, glossy, oh, everything's great in the Philly public school system. It shows this very real, the problems with Philly public schools, but does it in a way that is brilliant, because I think people learn more from comedy than they do from being lectured to.
I like that. Yeah, so Abbott Elementary and It's Always Sunny, they are scheduled to have an upcoming crossover episode. So be on the lookout for that. You mentioned something about just like the authenticity of Abbott Elementary, a mixture of like realness, comedy. Last week, I got to speak with the creators of this new animated series on Fox called Universal Basic Guys. And this weekend, they just had an episode all about the Philadelphia Eagles. And we talked about just how good the characters do the Philly accent. So, how can you tell if someone is from Philly by the way they speak?
I mean, yes, we have a particular accent, I would say strongest in South Philly and in Delco. And I think like Mayor of Easttown was another show that not as big as Abbott Elementary and It's Always Sunny, but another show that the accent was almost one of the characters on the show. And so, yeah, I think it's got a bit of a nasally twang to it, and it is very distinctive. And there are, of course, in different neighborhoods, different variations of that. But they're, for whatever reason, I think because we live here, they're distinctive to us.
So it's good that these shows are keeping our our heritage, our culture.
Right, for sure. Yeah. And I think these shows do a very good job of being authentically Philly. Philly is a character on both Abbott Elementary and on It's Always Sunny. It's not just a location, it's a character. And the way that the people behave on the shows is largely because of where they take place. And it's no coincidence that Rob McElhenney and Quinta Brunson are both from Philly, both went to Temple,
Yeah,
like they're that authenticity that they bring to those respective shows really shines through in the show.
More on Philly pop culture after the break.
It's Croctober, the official celebration of Crocs fans like you. So whether you like to rock your classic clogs, get cozy and fuss-lined, personalize with your favorite Jibbitz charms, or even, dress up like a clog for Halloween, it's time to tell your story and share your style. Join the Croctober celebration with Crocs fans around the world. Go to crocs.com to discover the range of shoes and find a pair that's iconic like you. Crocs, celebrating you all month long.
Looking for a great non-alcoholic beer?
Yeah.
Try Athletic Brewing Co.
One that actually
tastes great? It's athletic.
Or that has a
variety of styles? It's athletic.
Or
that's award-winning and seemingly everywhere? It's athletic. Just ask for it.
Okay. Can I get an athletic?
Sure can. The rest of you, go to askforathletic.com and find the #1 non-alcoholic beer brand in the U.S. at a retailer today. Near Beer.
Johnny, you do a weekly newsletter where you give a bunch of recommendations on what you're watching, what you're reading. Do you have any good Philly books that you're reading right now?
Yeah, for sure. One thing I'm reading right now is Takeover, which is a brand new book by Sherry Honkala, who is the leader of the Poor People's Army. And that is a local organization that really helps people who have nowhere else to turn. And they help them try to find housing, help try to find jobs, try to find clothes, etc. And her tactics are certainly controversial. She is certainly known not just in Philly, but across the country. And she has spent lots of time in and out of jail for her ways of protesting and also for one of her most famous tactics, which is essentially to break into houses that are abandoned.
Like squatting.
Right. But she'll break into an abandoned house. She has guys who are electricians. She has guys who are plumbers. She has guys that'll come in, fix the houses up, and then move a family in. Now, obviously, to do that, in our world, you need the proper paperwork but for her, it's more about there's no time for that. If a family needs somewhere to sleep that night, they need somewhere to sleep that night. They don't have time to purchase the house and go through closing and whatever else. This needs to happen right now.
It takes a long time. It's expensive. Yeah.
Right. So the book is sort of a history of the movement. She's been doing this for over 30 years, since back when she was a teen mom who was homeless herself. But it is certainly an interesting read. It's an interesting thought process because I think some of us get caught up in sort of our mainstream beliefs or what have you, but the reality for some people is very different than anything we've ever faced and hopefully ever will. But the people who are actually making things happen there, this is a really concise book that talks about why and talks about why they do it and why it's moral. And so I just think it's a really interesting read, and it has a lot to do with a lot of the problems the city's facing, and has to do with a lot of conflict with city government, state government, and federal government when it comes to housing Americans.
So you think people should be kicking down doors if they can't find housing?
I have mixed feelings on it. I think there's certainly a place where, you worry that you kick down a door and there is somebody there. That's the primary concern for me in terms of moving into, a lot of times they aim to move into government-owned housing, which the government will actually maintain but won't move people into. The government does own a lot of property in the city that they don't really do anything with. And so that is really the goal of the movement. And when it comes to that, I can't say that if I have a choice between thinking, should a child sleep outdoors tonight or sleep indoors, my basic moral code is going to be indoors and to some extent by whatever means are necessary.
Before we move on, Johnny, what was the name of the book again?
The book, once again, is called Takeover, A Human Rights Approach to Housing, and it's by Sherry Honkala, and you can purchase it at poorpeoplespress.com.
Okay, speaking of Philly media and pop culture, we have to talk about music because we are a city of music. In her latest music video for the song Movies, Tierra Whack has a baby with the Phanatic.
You never take me to the movies, take me to eat on a foodie boy. Enjoy.
Okay, so my thoughts on this very creative music video is that I feel like it perfectly describes the hodgepodge of Philly men and how people often say, like, it's so hard to date in this city.
Right. Yeah. And I guess that Tierra Whack has found a gentleman from the Galapagos Islands who has finally been worth dating.
And had a baby with them.
Right. Right.
But I don't know if the relationship is going to stay together.
Well, no, I don't think Mrs. Phanatic is going to be particularly pleased when she finds out that, her husband's been hanging out with local musicians.
Tierra brings like her creativity, her Philly roots in this music video. You see the Wawa geese. I've been working on a project. I'm trying to create the ultimate Philly music playlist. So we would have maybe Tierra Whack, definitely have to include Boyz II Men, Meek Mill, Patti LaBelle, The Roots. Any other musicians I should add to this list?
Oh, yeah. I mean, hundreds. I'll send you my list and we'll compare notes. But yeah, I mean, I think you Gamble and Huff, there's just so much great music there.
The sound of Philadelphia.
Right. You've got Hall & Oates, you've got, and you've got some groups or artists that I love that are not maybe as big as that. The Goats in the 1990s were a group that were fantastic. Reef the Lost Cause is a hip hop artist now who I think is absolutely brilliant, who I would definitely put on any Philly list. He has a song called Sound of Philadelphia.
Yo, welcome to the home of brotherly love. Brothers covered in blood, the man's office is covered in bugs. The youth dreams cut short, swept under the rug. Love for self is outweighed by the love for the drugs. Go Eagles, McNabb and T.O. We ain't hard to find.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think you can go back as far as you want. I mean, Philly is such an important music town, going back to Louis Prima and going 100 years back. This has always been, one of my favorite restaurants is in the old Victor's Cafe down in Deep South Philly. And you go in there and people sing opera while you're having dinner. It's pretty wild. And that was an old record shop. And that was 100 years ago as a record shop that they eventually converted into a restaurant. But that was a record shop over 100 years ago. So, that goes to show like the music roots in Philly are just so deep.
Is there one song that you would play that's like, this is what Philly is?
I mean, the Meek Mill song that the Eagles came out to.
Dreams and Nightmares, yeah.
I mean, that really encapsulates a lot of the energy of Philadelphia.
I used to pray for times like this, to rhyme like this, so I had to Grind like that, to shine like this. In a matter of time I spent on some locked up shit in the back of the paddy wagon, cuffs locked on wrist.
There's a real strong edge to it, but it's still hopeful, and I think that is a lot of what Philly is. And so, at first glance, I would probably go with that.
I'm battling. I feel like I love the theme song for the Sixers.
10, 9, 8, 76. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And then I love the 6ABC's theme song.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And those mashup videos that people have put out there,
Oh my
I just
God.
can't get enough of
It's
all
like-
the weird Philly things with the Action News theme song behind them. Yeah, that thing has just lived on, and I love it when things, it's like Jim Gardner too, right? It's like
Yes.
things, there's a connection to your grandparents, there's a connection to your parents, there's something about those kinds of things where you're just thankful that they kept them going. Like, I'm sure it's one point in the 90s, somebody was in the meeting was like, hey, we got to be edgier with our theme song. Somebody's like, no, you're not messing with that theme song.
Don't change it.
Right.
There goes that news van again. We got to talk about movies. So did you hear about this Wing Bowl documentary coming out?
Yes. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I did.
And Jason Kelce is in it. He
Of course.
opens the trailer.
Right.
So the premise is that it looks back on the 26-year history of the Wing Bowl chicken wing eating competition, which was actually a radio promotion for sports radio station WIP. The title of this film is No One Died, the Wing Bowl story. This event had booze, half-naked women, celebrities, outrageous stuff, and lots of chicken. Did you ever go to a wing bowl?
Yes, I went to one
Oh,
wing
wow.
bowl, and that was all I needed to ever go to know everything there was to know.
What did you
There was
see?
no nuance. There was nothing hidden between the lines.
Yeah.
It was right in your face. Here are some strippers bringing out a man with some girth to go to a table and just stuff himself full of chicken wings at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Would you see this film? Since you've been, would you see this film?
I would definitely watch the film. I'll definitely be curious. It is I want to say it's a Philadelphia mistake, but it's not really that. There's something, I don't even think there's something redeeming, but there's something very uniquely Philly about it. I think it should have been a cheesesteak eating contest. I don't know how
my
it went to
God.
wings. I would be very interested. I think it is humorous to look back on. It is definitely a thing that was a moment in time. I think they were good to get out when they did. It made legends out of certain people. There's El Wingador was a guy that won multiple times and kind of tried to build a career off of it, which didn't go too well. But then there was the Black Widow who would come here. I don't think she was from here, but she would come here and she would win. So the idea of a woman winning the chicken eating contest around all these big meaty dudes was kind of a story for a while. So they did a good job of creating storylines for something that was outrageous, which I will give them credit for. But the event itself was just a complete train wreck.
So this wouldn't be a cultural roundup without talking about sports. And like I said earlier, you're a part owner of Shibe Vintage Sports. How do you feel about the state of Philly sports at this moment?
It's a little rough. It's not terrible, but, we were all here in 2013 and all the teams were among the worst teams in their respective leagues. So it's not rock bottom, but it is certainly not great. We were all thinking the Phillies were going to go deeper than they did, and that was a big letdown. The Eagles are not at all living up to the talent that they have on the team, which is exceptionally frustrating. And the Sixers, yes, they've got Paul George, but we've just kind of reached a point where we're anticipating disappointment so that we don't get as hurt by it. There's this thing with Philly where if you feel like you're flying wide open, like a plane's going to crash into your side, knock you back to the ground. So I think people are a little bit guarded. And after the Sixers have hurt us so many times with so many different ways of trying to make it work with Joel Embiid, I think people are very cautious. So, yes, I think there's some energy heading into the season, but I think that people are wary of getting their hopes up. I think they did get their hopes up 5-6 years ago, and obviously it didn't work out. So now people are a little bit more guarded about that. There is some excitement, interestingly enough, around the Flyers.
Okay.
Which is very rare. That has not, the funny thing is, the only Flyers t-shirt that we've ever really sold a lot of has been a t-shirt with Gritty on the front. So
obviously
that was a phenomenon, I guess 6-7 years ago. I mean, just
so basically
absolutely.
Gritty helped like the Flyers brand.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But the team didn't respond by winning. And by the time sort of the Gritty furor had died down a little bit, there was nothing to land on. So they kind of went back to being an obsolete franchise. But now they have this rookie, Matvei Michkov, who is 19 years old, is apparently the next hockey superstar. And I'm not a huge hockey guy, but from what I hear from people talking, this is kind of the next, everybody wants to be at the wave when it's forming.
Yeah.
You don't want to be late to the bandwagon. So I would just tell people, if you're looking, it's like finding the hipster band before they go big.
Right.
Like if you're looking for that thing right now, I would say just keep an eye on the Flyers. I mean, you can be like me, be a total fraud, don't know what you're talking about. Just say Matvei Michkov is looking great. And then people will think that you know what you're talking about, and then you just back out of the conversation, but you still have put in your 2 cents.
Got it. Matvei Michkov. Have you ever heard of the Philly tuxedo? Do you know what that phrase means?
No.
That's when someone wears an Eagles hat, but like a Flyers jersey, or a Sixers jersey and a Flyers hat, or a Phillies hat. They don't match. It's 2 separate teams, but it's both Philly.
Right.
It's the Philly tuxedo.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're 4 for 4, you can definitely get away with the Philly tuxedo. No question about it. I've also heard about the Philly burrito. Have you heard about that?
Like the pizza and a cheesesteak thing?
Right. The Lorenzo's and Jim's mashed up on South Street. Somebody sent me that the other day. I was like, yeah, I ate that 20 years ago. Like, this isn't new.
Right.
Like, I can't eat it now. I'm an old man. I'll fall right over on the sidewalk. But, when my stomach was a little heartier and my cholesterol was a little lower, it was a pretty delicious meal. So I would tell people, give that a shot.
So you're running Quizzo games at bars across the city almost every night of the week. What's the status and vibes of our nightlife scene these days?
It is changing. It has been a bit of, a lot of changes since COVID, a lot of changes since 2020. I think for one thing, people are more comfortable at their hanging out and having a drink or two at their house and realizing how much money they saved by not going out and saying, you know what, we can make our own cocktails. And so I think that's been a real challenge for bars and restaurants, is dealing with that. I also think younger people are more health conscious than my generation was. So I think they're looking for drinks that are better for them. I talked to a buddy of mine, Art Etchels, who's the GM at Pennsylvania Libations, and he was saying that they're seeing a lot of non-alcoholic cocktails are actually really blowing up right now. They're also like the stateside, like those teas.
Yeah. That's a local brand.
That's a local brand that has blown up nationally. Those iced teas have just become a absolute phenomenon. So that's been a success story. I think for, bars and restaurants, it's been a little different. I think you're seeing the center of action and new things moving to Fishtown, Kensington. Mm-hmm. I think you're seeing far fewer openings in Center City. I also think you're seeing people go out earlier. I think that, the people have the kids are wearing these rings on the fingers that tell them to get sleep. Well, my generation, it was a point of pride that you didn't sleep, but but I don't think that exists anymore. So I think younger folks are going out to dinner earlier. I actually talked to Ben Felicia, who's the senior VP of strategy for Pennsylvania Restaurant Association. And he said the same. He said people are, because I wanted to be sure, like, this wasn't just me hanging out and seeing this. Is this something you're seeing on a larger scale? And he said, absolutely. He said people are definitely dining out earlier. He said the late night scene is almost non-existent. whereas earlier people would go out maybe. I mean, Philly's never been New York. It's never been.
Right.
We're
Everything's
gonna
shut
grab a
down at
burger
like 2 a.m.
Right.
Yeah.
But even now, I mean, you're seeing bars close now at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. You're just seeing a different type of nightlife. I think it's just shifted earlier. And you also, one thing Ben brought up is you're seeing a lot more restaurants open in the suburbs. And again, I think that goes back to 2020. People got comfortable not going far. And not needing to feel like they needed to have their big night out in Center City. So now they're having their big night out right down the street in the suburbs. So you're seeing a lot more action out there, and you're seeing a lot less action right now downtown than you did 5-6 years ago when the nightlife here was just absolutely off the chain. I mean, it was people everywhere.
So are people coming out to Quizzo night still?
Yes, we're still having some success with Quizzo. I do think that's a night that is staying fairly consistent, maybe not quite as busy as we were back then, but pretty close. One thing that, my buddy Art said was people aren't sidling up to bars like they used to. They're not talking to other people. There's more people watching their phones. There's more people with headphones in. And like Quizzo, you can't do that. You have to come in. You have to sit down with a group and you have to engage like together, not on social media. And I think there is still an attraction to that. I think that, humans are still social creatures, and I still think there is a lot of value to engaging in person as opposed to engaging on Facebook or engaging on Zoom or whatever. So I think that because of that, I think Quizzo is still fairly popular.
Before I let you go, I understand you brought a quiz question for me.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Why?
Well, this one I just learned about last week, so
Okay.
I was kind of excited about it. And it had to do with one of you all's podcast episodes last week.
Ooh.
So what famous cookie manufacturer was founded in 1853 at 22nd and Vine?
Ooh, that was the cookie episode with our former newsletter editor, Asha Prihar. Ooh, she would love this question.
This is a big national cookie manufacturer. They're also make crackers. I mean, this is a big...
Oh, okay. I grew up in Northeast Philly, so I remember like getting off the highway and smelling Nabisco cookies.
No.
No!
Nabisco.
Oh,
Yes,
no!
I knew you were going to go down that path. That's what the Quizmaster does.
Ah, you got me.
Yeah, that's what the Quizmaster does. He tries to send you down the wrong path. So,
Okay.
so it is actually Keebler.
Oh,
I did not know. Yeah, I did not know
wow.
that until last
The
week.
elves?
Keebler elves, yeah, the Keebler elves and like the Papa Elf or whatever
Yeah.
is basically based on the initial founder of the Keebler Corporation, and he was a Philly guy.
Oh, wow.
And I never knew that until
Never
last
knew
week.
that. Damn, I really thought I got it. I was like,
Yeah.
it was Nabisco. Well, Johnny Good Times, thank you so much for joining me on CityCast Philly.
All right, thanks for having me.
You can catch Johnny Good Times tonight at Founding Fathers on South Street at 8 p.m. That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. If you enjoyed this pop culture roundup, tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye. Did you really play high school basketball against NBA Hall of Famer, Sixers legend, and one of the greatest basketball players and cultural innovators, Allen Iverson?
Yes,
Wow.
that is accurate. Yes, I played summer league ball against Iverson. The highlight of my athletic career was a play I actually didn't make. Iverson, I was guarding him. He went up for a shot. The ball fell out of his hands, and the crowd thought I had blocked the shot. So the crowd went crazy. I started pounding my chest as if I had actually done something. I had not, but that was the highlight of my basketball career.
Wow.